Format for today is 30 minutes of me chopping it up with two of my favorite people on the planet, Steve and Mark. And then we're going to do 30 minutes of you guys asking these extraordinary human beings questions. So if you have a question, you drop it in the chat. Kathy will let me know, and then you ask your question directly to Steve or Mark. So let me introduce these guys. Steve and Marc Nudelberg are two guys I've known for a long time. I have immense admiration for them. Mark's book is phenomenal, Family Football and Failure. We're going to get into this book a little bit. And Steve is the legendary author of Confessions of a Serial Salesman. These guys are special guys. They run a company called On the Ball. So Steve is now the principal thinker, which I love that title, of On the Ball Ventures. He's a TEDx speaker. He's a podcast host. He and Mark run the Daily Huddle. And if you are not tuning in at 7:58, what are you doing? The Daily Huddle, it's better than your morning cup of coffee. It's absolutely unbelievable. Mark is the president of On the Ball Ventures, and very cool, before he got into what he's doing today, he was a Division I football coach, and he coached programs like the University of Cincinnati, University of Florida, and he coached at FSU. So he's got unbelievable credentials. I am so fired up, but first I'm going to throw it over to Kathy to get us started. Kathy, get us started. What do you guys think of our new intro?
I gotta tell you, Scott, I've been a part of a lot of really cool intros, like, Enter Sandman in Virginia Tech, Clemson, Louisiana, LSU. That has to be the coolest thing I've ever been a part of.
Well, we have a man to thank. Where is my man, Mike Perlow? Mike is the CEO of Perlow Productions. I said, Mike, we need to step our game up. What can you come up with? And Mike came up with an intro that I think is pretty damn cool.
That was fantastic.
So as long as we don't get sued by Monday Night Football, I think we're good to go.
Well, here's the problem. For me, it can only go downhill now, man.
That's tremendous. Guys, I am so excited to kick off 2023 with literally two of my favorite guys. Last year we kicked off with Megan Riley. So I always try to pick somebody that I just feel this incredible connection to. And that's definitely you guys. I could talk to you for this full hour, but unfortunately we don't have time to do that. I'm going to jump right into Q&A, and we've never really done it with two people before, so we're going to kind of bounce around and we'll figure it out as we go. I wanted to start with Stu and Stan. Stu and Stan are pretty prominent. You guys wrote about them in your books. You wrote about them in your editions of Standing O, which Steve was in the original. Mark was in Standing O tribute, and Jake is going to be, who's the youngest Nudelberg, is going to be in Standing O honor, which is going to come out this year. Tell us a little bit about who are these guys? Who's Stu? Who's Stan? And what have you learned from them?
Sid, I think he's talking about Sydney and Stan. I think
Sid. Sorry, I don't know where I got Stu.
I have no idea who Stu is.
It's a long walk,
but I'd love to meet Stu at some point.
Sid.
That's awesome. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My grandfather was in the fashion shoe business, and my dad joined him. And so for me, the dinner table was always that place where they were telling stories, and it was very lively. You had to, sort of jump in, or you would get lost. And so that tradition created sort of the legacy that I get to be part of now, where I learned so much. My appetite for growing and being better and understanding that the value of relationships was way more than anything else. And I passed that on to my boys, who, at the time decided to take their skill sets and move it to football. But as Marc wrote about in his book, the common theme about how to treat people, how to build relationships, how to take care of the negative talk in your own brain, all of those things are fundamental to whatever you do. And Marc, I don't know if you'd have, further.
I think it's a really cool story, in my opinion, because I think when you talk about the family dinner table and the conversations that we're having, they were in business together. My great-grandfather, Sidney, and my grandfather, Stan, were in business together. As I grew up, that tradition carried on, but it was not the family dinner table per se at night. It was the holidays when we would go to my grandfather's house for high holidays. And then it was my grandfather, who was the ultimate patriarch of the family, and my dad and his brother, my Uncle Michael, who were all entrepreneurs. My grandfather was in the shoe business. My dad was in the cell phone business. My Uncle Michael had his own dental practice. And even though it was business being talked about, it was what was happening in their worlds. And that entrepreneurial spirit just was alive and well at the dinner table, which passed on to the future generations of my cousins. And I write about it in my book, whereas it didn't really matter, I think, where I went, whether I would have gone to football or some other industry. The foundations that were laid for me in the principles of ownership, in the principles of responsibility, in the principles of what were the fundamentals that made them successful, those were laid at that table, listening to those conversations. And that's really what set me up for success, regardless of where I would have gone.
Very cool. Very cool. Steve, and this is really for both of you guys. Let's talk about the 27 rules that you write about in Confessions of a Serial Salesman. It's a very eclectic mix. It's everything from drink something green to practice gratitude, and lots of stuff in between. Tell me probably either two of your favorites or two of the most impactful, and then I'd love to hear your take, Marc, growing up with these rules that, I don't think they were on a whiteboard in your kitchen, but I'm sure you heard them time and time again. I'd love to know which ones resonated with you the most.
So I was voted the least likely to write a book in high school. So for me, what transpired was I had early success in revenue development that carried on to every category that I got in. And somebody said to me one time, "Hey, don't you want to leave like these thoughts like for somebody else?" I go, "Like who?" And he goes, "Like your grandson." And I was like, wow, really never thought about that. But these were rules that helped me define my path. So they weren't all originated by me. I was a lifelong learner, I still am. I would just look at what other people were doing who were successful and say, I don't believe everything you say, but that's a nugget I'm going to grab. And that's a nugget. And I started practicing them. For me, the number one rule in the book is tell me something good. As a student of the game, I was in business. You'd walk up to somebody, hey, how you doing? And they would just go on and on about all of the shit in their life. Oh, my house, my car, my wife, my, you know what? And like, who really wants to hear that? Number one. And number two is, if you did have an agenda to try and work with them, you had to get through all of the muck to get to what you were doing. I'm a music fan. You know, the song Shaka Khan just stuck with me. She was like, tell me something good, man. And I was like, I tried it one time, just out of the blue, walked up to somebody, hey, tell me something good. Boom, they hit me with something really good in their life. It took them a little while. Their brain was kind of froze. Boom. But the minute they hit me with that, I was like, that's incredible. We will own that moment forever. I know that about you. It's much deeper than selling or any, it was really a target for relationship building. So, you know, I was in the cell phone business early on, man. The cell phones didn't really work, which was hilarious. We had a lot of customer service issues. The best way to diffuse a bad, you know, a mad customer was to say, hey, tell me something good. So, you know, I found it worked. And so all of those rules were pieced together because the role I played in business deals with the most rejection. I wanted to be in a position where I had a process. Now, no surprise, Marc went on to coach football, which is all process and systems. Every business I built was based on an organized, written, repeatable process. And that's what that book is. So that one stands out at me. People ask me all the time, what are your favorites? They're all, you know, for me at this point in my career, the rule that I wrote, act like it's your first day, is so impactful because we're all about shortcuts. Everybody's looking for shortcuts. Everybody's looking for a way to do it faster, cheaper. You know, in business, man, you got to work your ass off. There's no substitute for the work. And you get reminded of what you did your first day at any job. Like the first day I went to work for my grandfather, like I was prepared. I knew what I was wearing. I knew I had to be there on time, all of that stuff. People get away with it. People slide in the office now and they're there for a half hour having coffee. You know, that's just the first day of your career. You would do anything to be successful. If you can live every day like that, your mind allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally do on your own. So there isn't one rule that's a favorite or another. I use them all the time. Here's the real takeaway, is that when something's not working, I look at the 27 rules. There's something in there that if I start doing it again, kickstarts me right back to where I'm supposed to be. So like the dude last night that missed 4 field goals, he's got to get he got to get back to basics, you know? So what's not working, you know, and usually it's the simplest actions that get you there. So Marc, you grew up with them. You actually wrote the foreword for the book, which is super cool.
Yeah, I think, you know, I grew up with those rules, but they weren't rules. The book wasn't written, and there was this outline like, hey, these are the rules we live by. It was done in action. But I don't think this is a rule in the book, but I think it's the underlying takeaway that I got, which served me very well in football and everything that I've ever done, which is control the controllables. And if you look at all of those 27 rules that he wrote about, you are in control of doing all of those things. And all of those things will have a direct outcome on the way you think, which affects what you do, and then gives you the best opportunity to control the result. So controlling the controllables was the thing I understood growing up. That was what we talked about. That was what we did. The first chapter of my book is just do the frickin' work, because it didn't really matter what I came to my dad with wanting to do. It always then came back to, well, what do we have to do in order to get you there? Right? Like, okay, you got a B or a C in a class. You wanted to get an A. What are you going to do in order to be able to do that? Or, okay, you want to be the starting pitcher on your baseball team. What's the work that's associated with that to get you to do that? It always came back to what can you be responsible for in order to give yourself the best opportunity to be successful. And so that to me is, I don't think it's a rule in the book, but the idea of controlling the controllables and focusing on those things and not focusing on the things that were out of our control was how I was raised. And it's what we live by today.
Yeah, it's amazing to see you guys live. They're not just words. It's how you guys live. It's how you run your businesses, which is really, really cool to see, because a lot of people talk the talk, they don't walk the walk. Marc, your book is incredible. Talk a little bit about your career as a coach. So you coached under some legendary coaches, and as you say, some that maybe weren't great leaders. What do you think made some outstanding leaders and some subpar?
And this is the key takeaway, I think, for all of it, was relationship. It always comes back to the relationship that the head coaches had with the staff members and with the players and with everybody in the organization. It didn't matter really how talented we were or how untalented we were. It came back to how well did they connect with the staff and with the players, because that's what offered them the opportunity to then implement the philosophy, implement the strategy and the system. I was fortunate to be around a lot of head coaches and work in a lot of programs. There are some fundamentals that are non-negotiable that make teams successful, and everything else is window dressing. The plays you're going to run, the words you're going to use, the way you're going to get a play in, whether you're going to huddle or you're not going to huddle, it's all window dressing. What comes down to whether or not you're going to be successful is how well the team comes together and plays for each other, and how well they execute on Monday through Friday. Because the decision was made on whether or not you were going to win a game during the week. And so the guys who did the best at not riding the highs and the lows of the season, but staying consistent in what the work was that we were trying to get done, and understanding how to navigate what the next goal was and what the next thing that we needed to accomplish, were all great. But it came back to whether or not the kids believed in the head coach. And there were guys like Tommy Tuberville and Bobby Bowden that were historically really good head coaches. But when they walked into the room and they relied on that to get the guys to buy in, it fell on deaf ears. And when you had guys like Brian Polian that were committed to doing whatever he could to get the team to be successful, that team that I was on with him did not win a bowl game. We ended up getting fired at the end of the game because we didn't win enough games to keep our job. But as I look back on my career, that was hands down the most successful coaching season I had ever been a part of, because we had a kid die in the offseason. He drowned in Lake Tahoe. We dealt with unbelievable amounts of injuries and lost guys on the roster. And we had guys who had no business playing college football playing that season. And we ended up winning 6 games. So like the idea that we moved that team.
You kicked Vegas's ass, man.
And yeah, we absolutely dominated UNLV at the end of the year. For those of you that are Vegas people, you understand the rivalry between Nevada and UNLV. That game was everything for them, and they ran across the field with the cannon at the end of the game. And so that to me it wasn't really about the wins. It was about what we were able to accomplish with what we had that year. And we got fired still. We did, in my mind, the best job you could possibly do in coaching, and got fired at the end of the season. So I think that really talked to me, and I wrote about it in a post this morning. Victimhood versus victim. Being fired for every kind of reason possible during my career taught me that I could not allow circumstance or situation to define my response or what was going to happen. I was going to have to accept reality of winning and losing, of being hired and fired. And regardless of what those outcomes were, I was going to have to control my response to getting back to do the only thing that mattered, which was the work that we had to put in regardless of what was happening.
Phenomenal. One of the things that you mentioned that made those coaches great were relationships. And a really smart guy I know named Steve Nudelberg said about social media, it's breadcrumbs that lead you to a relationship. One of the things that I think is very cool about you guys, especially folks of a certain vintage, is a lot of people poo-poo social media and don't embrace it. You guys have embraced it, you know, full force. And Steve, I mean, I think especially, you know, you, I was actually talking to somebody the other day who's, you know, 28 years as a very successful sales leader and wants to start a sales training company. And I said, you have no social media presence whatsoever. You've never built your brand. Like, it's going to be tough for you, because you are the company. Tell me why you guys have embraced social media so much. I mean, I do think it's to follow those breadcrumbs that lead to a relationship, but I'd love to hear from you guys on that.
So I sold my last business 8 years ago, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I fell upon this platform, might have been even longer, might have been 9 years ago, LinkedIn. And somebody had told me LinkedIn was a recruiting tool. I said, I got time. I'm going to invest. I'm going to learn it, like, for myself. I'm going to really spend time there. And what I found out is that, you know, while it was built as a recruiting tool, I'm recruiting new relationships. I want to be able to get in front of more people, create awareness. Our formula is awareness leads to consideration. Consideration leads to decision. I want more people aware of who we are, what we're doing, who we're doing it with, and why. That's not advertising. It's sharing. This is who we are. You can love me or you can hate me, but at least you know. So if you go, do you know Steve Nudelberg? I don't know him. I'm out of the game. So I looked at it very differently. I said, this is like the world's largest networking event. Everybody's here and they're walking around with, here's where I went to school, here's what I love to do, here's the charities I'm involved in, and here's pictures of me and here's what my company does. I was like, great. If there's something that I could connect with them on, and I'll give you a perfect story of why it works. The regional president for Aflac, a guy named Rick Whalen, runs the whole Southeast for Aflac. He's a Jet fan. I didn't know that. Crazy. Okay. He posts on a Monday morning.
It is crazy to be a Jets fan. I agree.
I'm a Jet fan. I'm a Jet fan. So I know. So he posts, this is 2-3 years ago. He posts on a Monday morning about being a Jet fan and how bad it is and whatever. All I did was comment that, hey, only another Jet fan can know that misery. Bang, instant connection, took it offline for what we call virtual coffee. So I didn't have to physically go to his office or boom. We invested 15 minutes in each other that turned out to be Aflac's one of our biggest clients. We coach the management team. We coach a lot of the regionals. You know, why? Because it started with a relationship. Now, I didn't ask him to buy from me. Some of the stuff you see in LinkedIn and social media is hilarious. Oh, I'll connect with you. And the next thing is, do you want to buy Bitcoin from me? You know, like, seriously, you can't even spell my name. But, you know, so people got lazy and they're using LinkedIn as a sales platform. It's a relationship platform that allows you for the first time ever to market you, not the logo on the door. Yeah. Wow. What an epiphany that people just don't understand. And by the way, Elon Musk spends no money advertising, but yet everybody knows Tesla because it's his. So, you know, the idea that you could market yourself for who you are, not what you do, is so revolutionary. People are defined by what they do. Oh, you go to a party, I'm the VP of sales for, who the hell cares about you? You know, I walk into that same party and I go, I like to drink tequila. Boom, who do you think's meeting and talking to more people? and then afterwards they go, you're a great guy. What do you do, man? Oh, then we do we should talk. It's all about conversation and awareness. When Marc left coaching and called me and said, hey, I want to get into the business world, I introduced him to a couple of other entrepreneurs. I didn't think it was a good idea to work with me, but he had no social media at that time. They used to laugh at me when I was on Facebook. But, long story short, I hooked him up with the people at ESPN Radio. He wound up getting a gig with them to sell digital advertising. And he said, Dad, they flew me all over the country. They taught me all about the product. They didn't tell me how to be a salesperson. What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? What do I have on my calendar? The thing that all successful coaches do. He said, could you teach me? I was like, are you kidding me, man? Like, can I teach you? And I wrote him a program that was fundamentally based on just reach out to CEOs that went to Florida State. Done. Marc, did you do that?
I did that.
And what happened?
Had great success. But so I think for me, what made sense to me and the reason that I love it so much and the way I try to teach people to think about it is every job that I got as a college football coach, and I had the most untraditional path into coaching that you could possibly have, I got because of a relationship that I had developed with somebody who helped me get that job. And so I think we all we all say our network is our net worth, or it's all about the relationship. And that's really cool language. And that's, cool, stuff to put on your wall. But how do you live that every day? Well, you have this tool that is the ultimate relationship development tool that you could use 24 hours a day. So for me to not be putting the opportunity out there for people to build a relationship with me or feed a relationship with me or find out about me, and inversely use it to go build relationships with others, I would be robbing myself of what I feel is the most important opportunity that creates success for me across the world. It doesn't matter. Like in football and business, it always comes back to the relationship that you have with somebody and their willingness to help you. So if you had access to the number one tool that was going to help you in the number one commodity, why would you not use that? Yet everybody looks at social media like, oh, well, I don't want to be self-promoting, or I don't want to be an influencer, or I don't want to talk about myself all the time. It's not about talking about yourself. It's about living out loud, being your authentic self, and offering people connection points that they have the opportunity to connect with in order to build a relationship.
Yeah, we literally would not be learning from you two today if it were not for social media. Steve and I met on LinkedIn. Steve, you want to tell them the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's fabulous. I was friendly with this guy, Scott. Scott says, you need to meet, this wonderful human being. Okay, Scott McGregor. We wound up, I think, having a phone call. We weren't even doing Zoom back then. When we scheduled 30 minutes, the call actually was more like 2 hours. I mean, it was like back and forth and back and forth. And I said, you're the kind of guy that I want in my life. I'll have lunch with you in New York tomorrow. I got on a plane in the morning. I flew to New York and we had lunch, and we've been friends ever since. I didn't come with an ask. Most people come with an ask. Will you buy this? Will you do this? I just came because he makes my life better. And listen, fundamentally, my grandfather told me, hang around good people. Good things happen when you hang around good people. Scott's one of the most awesome people ever. He's one of those guys. If he called me, he said, I got arrested, I'm in Alaska, I'd be there before the phone hung up. I mean, that's kind of, and I love having those kind of people in my life that has nothing to do with what I make or what I do. And people get caught up in the cars and all of the bullshit. That's not it. This is the real stuff. This is the real deal. If he told us to do anything, we would do it. And so the way we maintain the relationship is different. It's because of social. I see him every day. I see what you guys are doing. We're members here. Time-wise, it's difficult for us to make everything, but Jesse's a friend, Megan's a friend. I mean, these are people that are all part of this tribe that, your life gets better and so does your business. So when we work with people on a regular basis, we're showing them that life could be so much more. You could, I learn so much from, being in social media because I'm open to it. I want to learn. So, I think it's fun. I think it's great. For me, when I was started doing it 8 or 9 years ago, there weren't that many people doing it. And it was like kind of spooky because I remember going, man, I was taught not to really talk about myself. And then here I am talking about myself. And I was fortunate to get introduced to Gary Vaynerchuk, who is completely off the rails, man. But for 10 years, he's been spouting. It's about relationship. It's about just meeting the right people. Don't worry about selling. And God, I still think he continues to put out great content, which allows me to learn on a regular basis from him, from Jesse, from Megan, from you. So, the advantages are overwhelming to me.
Agreed. And just, I'm going to make this commitment here and now. If I get arrested, I'm going to get arrested in Hawaii. So you don't have to go to Alaska, and you can come bail me out, and then we'll, all stogies and drinks on me in Hawaii, not Alaska.
I'm on speed dial. I'm ready.
All right. I obviously could talk to you guys forever. We've got a lot of people that would love to ask you questions. So we're going to jump into that. We're going to go to Connecticut, my home state. We're going to Jeff Gamble to start us off. Jeff,
yes,
you're up.
Scott. Thank you.
Mark and Steve.
Mark, Steve, thank you so much for being here. I grew up also in a family business, clothing business. I know those conversations at the dinner table. So I had somebody contact me yesterday who remembered me from about 4 or 5 years ago, which is always a nice thing. And she's the Chief Human Resource Officer, VP of Operations for a manufacturer that sells consumer goods. They're in 50,000 stores. They're in 25 countries. And I had a call today before this. So how did I start the call? Tell me something good. I said, well, Steve said this is what I've got to say. So I'm gonna say it. And the first time I did it, first time I used that line, I did my homework on you. It was so great. It really was. And I have a way of breaking the ice pretty quick with people, but I used that line. And she said, the weather in Westchester, New York. I said, great. I mean, and it just flowed from there. It was so beautiful. Thank you, brother.
My pleasure. I love hearing stories of it real time because, it's something actionable everybody can do. I love it.
Thank you.
We're going to Switzerland, the land of cheese and chocolate. Manola, you're up with Steve and Mark.
Hi, all. Hi. And it's such a great joy being here, and thank you for indulging me staying off video. A bit of a personal emergency going on at the moment, but I was listening to this conversation, and the lens that I used for it. I am calling in from Switzerland, but originally I'm from Romania. Lived and worked in 14 countries in 20 years, and I agree with everything that you said. However, there are some more or less subtle cultural subtitles, to engaging with people. So my question is, as this community grows more and more international, as the world is, closer and closer for networking and for business across cultures, are there any cultural differences, any cultural subtitles that you would like to highlight?
Are there so what I would say is the opportunity that's been provided by communities like this, like the community that we're building with Get on the Ball training, like any online community, just your social media in general, is the ability to connect with people anywhere, anytime, any place. But the thing that you have to do in order to be able to do that is know what's important to them and not you. So regardless of what country you're in, regardless of what may be happening around you, I have to do my own homework to figure out what's going on in your world and what may be important to you in order to offer myself the best opportunity to connect with you. So Manola, I would say, like, I wouldn't focus like on the differences, or I wouldn't focus on maybe what the cultural undertones may be. I would do extraordinary amount of work to figure out what commonality do we have, regardless of difference in time zone, geographics, any of the other cultural differences that tie us together.
Yeah, I like that, Mark. I would just add that one of the riches of this platform is that I don't really know your culture, and with you, I have a chance to learn it. So if you're willing to share, I'm willing to share, and living in that place where it's not our way or the highway, it's just more of, wow, you come with a different perspective or different words, or I think that's just so rich and so wonderful.
Agreed. Great answer. We're going to Florida. Randy Ostrow, you're up.
It's not a question. It's not a question. It's a statement. The Nudelbergs practice what they teach. And thank you for being who you are. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate you as always.
Here's the problem with social media. People want to be something that they're not, or that they can't deliver when you meet in person. And that's the big drop off. It's like, what? Like the dating game. Well, that's not who, so, this being something that you're not, and people being comfortable with that is not what this is about. This is about genuine, authentic delivery of who you are, and you'll connect with the right tribe. And if you don't connect, that's okay too, man. Not everybody loves what we do. Not everybody loves me. I've had clients of mine for years who are now working with Marc, who I no longer talk to those assholes anymore. No. But they wanted a fresh perspective, and it's like, it just offers more opportunity if you're real. And people go, so for us, the Daily Huddle is really a sample of how we operate. The origin of the Daily Huddle started in every business I've ever had. I'd grab people, throw them in either a room, or we did it by video conferencing way back when, just to check everybody's pulse. When Marc was coaching football and had things he wanted to learn, tell him. We met every morning, right?
Yeah, we had our own staff meeting. That was the best part of having a 7 a.m. staff meeting at every school that I ever worked at, was I knew that my dad was up prior to that. So we could always get on the phone at 6:30. And really with that schedule, I'd be going from 7 to 10 at night. It was our only time to connect because he was sleeping by 8:30 every night. So for me to be able to catch him on the phone, that was our time. And that's really where I started to draw the parallels, like working for Jimbo Fisher at Florida State. And I don't mention names in the book, unless they're good, but I do mention scenarios. That was a really, really hard working environment, toxic leadership, and the kind of working environment where every day that you walk in, you're walking on eggshells, waiting for him to blow a gasket about who knows what. And I was like, this can't be the way that it's supposed to be done, but we were having success on the field. And I knew we were surrounded by really good assistant coaches, and we just had something happen in a really, unique way there. But I would be on the phone with him in the mornings going, wait a minute, talk to me about how you're running this organization. Talk to me about how you're doing this team meeting. This is what's happening in my world. And I started to draw the parallels between what made, leaders or organizations successful in business and in sports.
Love it. We are going to a man who is dedicated to giving out hugs and high fives on the 2nd of February for our meetup. Doug, you're up.
Oh, Steve. Yeah, get ready, whoever's in attendance. They will be plentiful. Thank you to Steve and Marc Nudelberg. What an amazing way to kick off the Legends series with these two legends. Steve, I don't know if you remember, but
Of course. What do you mean?
About-
Rebecca?
About
I
four
remember
years
we had lunch
ago.
in Palm Beach. We went in the mall in Palm Beach.
You're
Of
the-
course I remember.
You're the man. I met you for lunch. I took the train up. It was like meeting royalty in real life, and you're as genuine as they get. And I'm a great admirer of yours and yours as well, Mark. Really tremendous to
Thank
see
you.
the growth and the success. So my question revolves around like a variation of the phrase that when the pupil becomes the master, when the student becomes the teacher. And I'm wondering, maybe it's more directed to you, Steve, as you've brought Mark into the fold and is now operating as the CEO. Can you recall a moment? Was there a moment or an experience that you all had when maybe Mark was, conveying a message to a team or to you, and you're like, son of a bitch, like my dude, my boy is now like the guy and I'm learning from him?
So I'm an emotional guy, so you'll get me crying pretty easy.
So do I cry easy.
No lie. So I always wanted to work with my boys. Wasn't in the cards. Both of them were football coaches, and I supported them and loved them. And this was their passion, and that's what I did. When I sold the last business, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. Somebody asked me to come in and work with their team. I did well. I'm still working with that team at Bank United 8 years or 9 years later. So when Mark said, I want to join the business, like my whole world stopped. I was like, oh my God, this could work. But I didn't want him to come right in with me. I wanted him to go learn what it was like on the outside. And then when we finally made the decision to do it, you talk about timing, he made a decision to leave ESPN and join me. I made him write a business plan, how are we going to fund it? I didn't give him anything. He did it. We were all set to do a different business. And he resigned at the end of February. March 1st, he walks in and says, I'm getting out of here. And March 15th, the world shut down. And he looked at me and he goes, Dad, did I make a mistake? And I go, to the contrary, never before was everybody on the starting line. And he'll tell you that's exactly what I said. I go, we all have to figure it out. That's where I'm at my best, is figuring it out. I'm the idea guy. I always have been in every business I've been in. So it was great. We got to build something together. He watched it, he saw it, and we were very, very careful about boundaries. We were careful about how we treated each other, what we took for granted. And the goal was, and I said to him, you can take this business further than I can because my limits are in the digital world. I wasn't born with the chip. I can learn it, but it's not inherent with him. He was already doing shit in college with the computers and whatever. So the inevitable destination for our business is the new online platform. All I did was help him meet the guy that I knew could do it with us to build it. And I helped fund it. But he and Jake built it. That was my moment where I said, holy shit, this is what I always wanted. And he can do it. And there were a lot of my friends who said, oh, you're giving your kid a job and you're, all that nepotism bullshit. And I was like, he's better than I am. He's got more raw training on how to develop people than I did. I was an entrepreneur like my grandfather. I would kick you in the ass before I give you a hug. That's just the way I grew up. He does it better. The platform that we built is incredible. So to a long answer, but yeah, I'm incredibly proud. And I had this conversation with Jesse Itzler. Success comes to you in a lot of ways. Most people measure it in money, and he does that spiritual billionaire thing where he goes, you could have $1 billion and have no soul. Well, you can have that. I don't want that. I'd rather have $1 and $1 billion in soul, which I have.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome.
Enrique, We're staying in Florida. Enrique, you're up.
All right, Steve and Mark, what a great opener to our year. Thank you so much for all you do. Now, I'm heavy on legend, heritage, legacy. You spoke about, your family makeup and how that influenced you. And I wanted to ask you both, Steve and Mark, from your grandfather's perspective. So Mark, from your grandfather, Steve, from your what did you take from them that today you could say, wow, that piece really got me to where I am today?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Because it's generational. So my grandfather, I was always looking for recognition. And my grandfather was that guy who said, that's what you get paid for. So I always took that, like, I don't need anybody else's validation. I know what needs to be done. I know I can do it, and I do it. The rest is all trade dress. It doesn't matter if you get it, great. That's nice. And some of the things that people are saying here are extremely humbling. It's not why I do it. It does not drive me to be bigger, better. I do what I do because I know how to do it, and I want to get better at it. And I learned that from my grandfather. So Mark, I don't know what.
Yeah, and I think, from my grandfather, there was a ton, and I love him in our relationship, but visiting him at his stores, I always got introduced to customers as if they were family. And so the understanding of what customer experience should be like and what it means to be a customer is it's not transactional, that it's relationship driven, and that it's somebody that you would want to introduce your family to, is something that I carry with me as we operate not in person. I mean, the majority of my coaching that gets done is through a computer screen. The majority of business development that happens is through a computer screen. So taking that philosophy of how do I create an intimate customer experience for anybody that I work with, and how do we accomplish that through a virtual world? The philosophy is rooted in what he taught me as a little boy, visiting him in his store, and it carries through to the way we do business today.
Love it. Love it. Love it. We're going to Tag in Connecticut.
Wow, good afternoon, Mark and Steve. So great to see you guys here. Kind of following Randy Ostro's lead a little bit, more of a statement of gratitude. Steve, I've got your book here, obviously one of your lessons here. First, I just want to thank Scott for introducing me to your world, the Nudelberg Daily Huddle, and you guys, and connecting with me on LinkedIn. The one thing I regret at this point, I've yet to take you up on a virtual coffee concept that I got to do that for sure. But just everything that you guys do, a lot of things just resonate. Number one, the family piece. I've got 3 boys, 24, 21, and 15, all different kind of guys. And watching you guys work and do your thing with Jake and everything else is so much. The other thing too, I'm in educational based athletics. So obviously, Mark, there's a ton of stuff that resonates there with your background. Just a tidbit, I started out my college career at Lehigh. So maybe that's something we can talk about later on down the road, because that was in the 80s and craziness.
Right.
But I think in terms of the gifts that you've been able to share, initially me being intimidated as in my mind, an educator, and getting into the circles of business people and learning. But every morning that I have the opportunity to listen to you, or at night, if I don't catch it, there's a nugget that's there every day that applies to life, me, family, my student athletes, my coaches, and I get to share that. And it's been really, really cool. And I just wanted to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for exposing me to that, and look forward to growing and learning more with you. So just a thank you.
Ted, I want to say I appreciate you and your content. I always love when you share something from the educator coach perspective. So I would love to see more of that in my feed.
Thanks. And then the last piece that I wanted to share is this morning driving into work, I was listening to you, and I had a report today that I needed to submit. And I was just listening to some stuff that you were talking about, and it planted some seeds. And I was kind of like, holy shit. And I went in and I didn't blow it up, but I had to freaking change it up a little bit. And it was about the messaging component, controlling it and owning it. And it was something I've been working on all weekend and was trying to get to, and just listening to you guys do that. So again, my thing that I try to cross over in terms of my work and my family, there's an acronym I use: family, academics, community, team, and self. The acronym there is FACTS. Everything I do is acronyms, and it just crosses over. And just wanted to thank you for that tidbit this morning, because pushed me over the edge to finish off what I was doing and get that thing submitted. So thank you.
Appreciate you, Tag. Thank you.
Love it. Our cleanup hitter today in Illinois, 25-year Air Force stud, the good Colonel. Scott, you're up.
I appreciate that, Scott. Steve and Mark, thank you again. This is one of the most authentic conversations that I've had on a Tuesday morning in a long time, and I loved hearing all the questions and that. Steve, I gotta say you're one of my fans too, because you're a huge Gary Vee fan. I've been following Gary Vee since the early days of Wine Library TV, and had the pleasure of visiting VaynerMedia a few years ago and hanging out with Claude. I mean, I think they do it right in the social media space, and they do it for the right reasons. And I have found, even in my Air Force career, or working with some great leaders and senior leaders, but it's funny that I've often been told, I've been told by these leaders, I'm putting myself at all this risk by using social media too much. And I just laugh, because I want to say to them, adapt or die, and it just drives me crazy that I don't see leaders who can ensure that their offline life matches their online life, still remain authentic, and filling these gaps and opportunities that they have to communicate with young men and women or their teams or organizations. And my question to you would be, how would you coach a senior leader who doesn't seem, they don't see the opportunities, they seem hesitant to use it, or they might not come off as authentic online as they do offline? Like, what kinds of things would you offer them if you could nudge them a little bit?
You might have just lobbed up the biggest softball of all time.
You play volleyball?
Swing
Mark,
for the
you wanna
fences,
go?
boys.
Go ahead.
Hey.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
For me, the reality is the number one skill that leaders should have is self-awareness, which is, how am I showing up to my family, to my friends, to my employees, to my vendors? And I think people really miss that. And we coach leaders to ask the question, how am I showing up in your life? If you're willing to listen to the answer, right, that's where real growth comes from, and opens the door to all the opportunity to learn. But if you ask people, hey, what kind of leader are you? And they say something and they're off in the weeds, there's nothing that's going to get to them. So for me, my recommendation would be to focus on self-awareness. Mark?
Yeah, right in line with that. I mean, usually when I work with somebody who's,
Wait.
I can tell.
I'm right.
No, just right along in the same lines. I asked them the question of what's the most important aspect to you leading the group, or what allows you the opportunity, which they should reply relationship. And if they don't, then that offers me the first point of coaching. And then if they say relationship, I ask them, I say, well, how do you consistently feed that relationship with your people? And that's usually a hard question for them to answer, because they're probably not doing enough one-on-ones. So they're not spending the time there. They're not communicating with their team daily, or they're not getting enough FaceTime. So when they struggle with the answer to that question, it opens up the opportunity to lead them to, well, are you interested in finding other ways to get to them? Because
the big stigma is LinkedIn is a business platform, not a personal platform. Well, if you work in a company around other people, you wish them a happy birthday, you wish them a happy anniversary, you talk about what's happening in their lives, or you should. Why would that be different in a business platform like LinkedIn, Marc posted something and he's just nuts. His wife just gave birth at 9 months ago. His wife is breastfeeding. He posted something about cleaning the bottles, or even better, before that, he posted about paternity leave. Now, when he came to me, I like, what's paternity leave, man? I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm going to be taking 3 weeks off with my wife. I go, 3 weeks, dude? Your mother had her C-section. I went to work the next day. He posted about it. And what happened when you posted?
Yeah, a ton of interaction and a ton of engagement. And, you know, I think it always goes back to people want to learn, they want information, but they want to learn from people they know. They want to have a relationship with you. And so how does your social media present opportunities for people to know you? And then you earn the right to be able to lead them.
Yeah, I think there's just fear that they're going to say something wrong when they really should just say it and reap the benefits potentially of the dialogue.
Well, that's, I think that the misnomer with social media is that it's about everybody liking you, right? And that's not reality. The reality is that you're using social media to find more people that like you and move further away from the people that don't like you. And so you're being offered an opportunity to get exposure to massive amounts of people, accepting the reality that the majority of them probably won't like you, but you will find more people that you have stuff in common with than if you don't.
Great. Thank you both.
Gold. Absolute gold. Speaking of gold, I just see Joe Jacoby, our Olympic gold medalist in Spain, popped in. I didn't even notice him, but good to see you, Joe. Listen, guys, this has been unbelievable to kick off our year with two guys that I have just immense admiration for. I would just really encourage everybody in our community and everyone who's going to watch this on replay, to tune into the Daily Huddle. If you can't tune in, check out the replay, see what these guys are doing, look at what they're building in their community of their own. They're just doing spectacular stuff, and they're doing spectacular stuff because they're spectacular human beings. So, I mean, I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you carving out very valuable time for us. And I do think everyone probably wants to see that Mike Perlow intro like one more time, don't you? Like that thing was so freaking good. Kathy, can you play that one more time for us?
Hold it, man.
Phenomenal. And Steve, you look jacked in that picture, man. Jacked.